So we're here today at Chesil Beach, and that is the Isle of Portland in the distance there. I think it's about 6 or 7 miles in that direction along the main bit of Chesil Beach. I plan to do a scientific expedition along there later this year, and in preparation for that today we're just coming here the other way towards Burton Bradstock, because Chesil Beach does extend as far as West Bay, which you can maybe just about make out the yellow cliffs of West Bay in that direction. We're not going all that way today, but I plan to spend a whole day looking at the gravel here on Chesil Beach in my science trip. And so today is going to be a little kind of preliminary to that, where I just test out my methodology for measuring and weighing the gravel. As I've mentioned before, the gravel here at Chesil is quite interestingly graded. Although there are exceptions, most of the stones at this end, well, this is actually the middle, are kind of large pea shingle. Up at Burton Bradstock, it's very small pea shingle, and then back along at Portland, it's cobbles. And so there's a continuum of stone sizes from large cobbles at the Portland end through to pea shingle at the Burton Bradstock end. And I want to weigh and measure them and survey them. So that's what we're going to do today. Just going to actually test out my proposed methodology. I want to weigh and measure these stones, or get an average for them. So I'm just going to pick a spot that looks like it doesn't have too many kind of exceptions and outliers in it. So I think we'll go for maybe, I don't know, here. So here's the plan. I will fill this cup with stones, excluding any obvious outliers. It doesn't actually matter if it's full or not, and weigh it. I will, when I do the final survey, I'll take off 12 grams for the pot. So that's 497 grams. Then I got to count the stones. This will be easier when we get nearer the Portland end than when we're at this end. That, believe it or not, is 100 stones. Two, 4, 6, 8, 9. So we've got 359 stones there. 359 stones for whatever that weight was. So the average weight of stones is this number on the screen right now. And that took me 4.5 minutes to do. So I need to factor that into however many stops it takes to survey the whole beach. Obviously, as we go towards Burton Bradstock, it will get harder because the stones are smaller, so there's more to count. As we go towards Portland, it will get easier because the stones are bigger, and we may end up with only about like half a dozen or a dozen stones in the pot. It will still be an average weight though. Now I was going to try to measure them as well, but I don't really see any way to measure the physical dimensions of these and get a meaningful sample. I suppose I could just pick 10 at random and say I will measure them in their longest dimension and their shortest dimension. Maybe I'll do that. I might just do a timing of that as well. So I'll put these stones together. I'll pick a handful of 10 stones at random. So I'll get rid of those there. And I'm going to go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The rest go away, and then these stones would be the ones that I would measure. Right, so what we're going to do here, and I'll read these out because I don't want to spend time writing them down. So on first stone we've got a length of 15.91 millimeters by 7.26. And finally 14.17 by 7.14, and that took me another few minutes. So I've got a total of 7 minutes for this survey now, for measuring 10 stones and weighing and counting 1 pot. So that's good to know. When I get back home, I will calculate the numbers and we'll just have a look at those statistics on the screen. While we're here, let's just have a look at a couple of interesting things that are, well, one of them is very common to shingle beaches like this. This is sea kale, Cranby maritima, and these are the seed pods here, and they're like little corks. They're really light, adapted to float. And yes, if you're thinking this is a cabbagey looking plant, it definitely is. This is related to kale, so but you can't eat it like this. It's rather astringent and tannic, and if you eat this you'll still be tasting it 3 days later. So that's an interesting plant. That's very common on shingle beaches in general. Here's one that's rather unique to Chesil Beach, or at least locally unique. This is a plant you won't find on every shingle beach. This is the sea pea. So this is there's a pea flower. You can see that's a legume, and this is called the sea pea. And people used to pick and eat the pods of this. Here's one of them here, and they are just little pea pods. And if we open that up, I'm not going to, if we open that up, we'd find tiny little sort of petit pois in there. And also the dried seed pods, when they're mature, people would pick them and use the seeds a bit like lentils. Now, people don't do that these days. One of the reasons is because this plant is actually quite rare. At least it is in the UK. It's growing together with this, which is saltbush. It's a lot like goosefoot, and that's edible as well. Now, the other reason people don't eat the sea pea very much these days is it's one of those legumes where eating a lot of the seeds can be problematic. I believe there are chemicals in there. I can't remember exactly what the chemical is that does it, but it causes a condition called lathyrism, which causes muscle wastage, and you end up with weak legs especially, and wasting of the gluteus maximus, the big muscles at the back of your bum. And I have jokingly called this wasting of the buttocks in the past, but it's kind of a bit more serious than that, because it's wasting of the leg muscles essentially. So it's not even something you could eat as a dietary supplement to try to lose a bit of flab off the bum, because it's not flab that would go, it's muscles. And so yeah, not commonly eaten these days, but in the past people would pick the green peas, but also they would pick the dry pods and shuck them, and the little brown peas inside would be quite similar to lentils. Let's see if I can find one. There's one that's dry. So there we go. There's a pod that's dried out. And so yeah, seeds look a lot like lupin seeds, and as well they might. They are legumes, little beans. I will carry these seeds along to a bit of the beach where there isn't any sea pea. Here's another very nice coastal plant, rock samphire. Not growing on a cliff here, but growing in shingle, but it does that sometimes. This is a carrot family thing, and was much prized for pickling in days gone by. I've yet to try really cooking that in earnest. We've got ragwort here, probably just because we are right at the edge of agricultural land. That's not ragwort, that's something else. Maybe feverfew. I don't think that's ragwort. It might be. It's a bit difficult to tell. Sometimes the coastal aspect of where these are growing changes the way the plants look. It might cause them to grow with shorter leaves, or thicker, more fleshy leaves, or cause the height of the plant to be stunted, or any number of things. So growing on the coast often makes the same plant you've seen inland look like it's a different species. Jenny's just pointed out bird's foot trefoil here. Now, we're a little bit further on in the year since the last time I pointed out this plant, so let's see if we can see some seed pods, and we will try to observe why this plant is called bird's foot trefoil. Still might be a bit early, I think. Let me see what I can find. Camera off for a moment while I have a scout around. Okay, here we are. Here's one with the seeds. And there we go. That's why this plant is called bird's foot trefoil. That's how the seed pods are arranged on the end of the stalk. And you can see why people thought that looked a little bit like a bird's foot when they named this plant, or gave it its common name. Yeah, so bird's foot trefoil. Glad we found one of those. Actually, I've been talking about this plant several times and not been able to show you the seed pods, but this time we found them. So yeah, look at that. There is a bird's foot. And here you can see where there's underlying sand that's washing out here. So I think the measurements we take of the stones on this end of the beach, which I won't do as part of my main trip, I think that we're going to find that they're a little bit more noisy, the samples at this end of the beach. The part of Chesil Beach that detaches from the mainland and then reattaches itself on Portland Island is probably going to give us purer numbers than this one, this bit will, just because of the nature of the kind of connection to the mainland. Out on the other bit of Chesil Beach, there is just Chesil Bank. Here it's Chesil Beach and the rolling hills. So just looking up there, there's what looks like an abandoned building up there. There's some sort of probably military outpost. There's another thing up on the top of that hill there. Looking further down the beach, I can see another pillbox. We'll probably walk as far as that pillbox because it looks like a quite well preserved example, and then I can see another one further off behind it, which we probably won't go to. So I think we'll go as far as that one there, maybe have a look inside, assuming we can get inside, and then that will be the extent of our trip today. Now, you remember that little plant I found in the car park? I think this might be a relative of it. I'm not sure actually. No, I think this might be a pearlwort, but it's not the same one. This is a plant I'm not familiar with, so let's look this one up. Okay, yeah, so apparently this is a sand spurry, or spurry. It looks like to me that that's going to be in the carnation family. Just look by the look of the plant, the rosette, the slightly glaucous leaves, slightly fleshy leaves, and the 5-petaled flowers. I'm going to say likely to be in the campion family, or the carnation family. We'll check that and see how close I got to that. I'm going to take some close-up photos of that. There's drifts of larger stones here. There's banks where there's kind of almost coarse grit coming out, and actually not very rounded. It's quite sharp, and the reason for that's probably because we're connected to the mainland here, so there's opportunities for fresh aggregate and sediment to wash out of the land onto the beach. So that's the thing to think about, which is whereabouts on the width of the beach are we going to actually do our survey when we do the science trip. And I think probably it's fairer to do it on the side nearest the sea, not right down on the shore because that can be a bit treacherous, but perhaps on a little bank just above the shore. That also gives us the greatest consistency with the myth, or perhaps legend, that we're testing here, which is that fishermen landing on this beach in the fog or at night would be able to tell where they were by picking up a handful of gravel and observing the size of the stones. And again, the further along we go, definitely smaller stones now. I will have to prove that later. I mean, and when I say later, I mean when we do the expedition, scientific expedition to West Dorset. But yeah, just, you can almost hear it actually. It might be interesting to bring a sound recorder along and record the sound of our boots on the gravel and see if there's any difference in the frequency distribution or something like that, because that will probably say something about the size of the pebbles. So we're nearly at the pillbox now, and as I say, I can see another one further down. But this one looks like we might be able to go inside and have a look and see what was in there. I don't expect it to be more than a concrete box with windows, but we'll have a look. Well look, a lucky stone. Lucky because it's got a hole in it. Or you'll be lucky if you carry that back to the car. Right, so we're coming up on this pillbox. And this is going to be the turning point of our walk today. So I'll be able to measure this on the map and figure out how far we've walked in the time we've taken. Bearing in mind that we have made a few stops on the way to look at plants and whatnot. So this pillbox is showing what I find to be more of the typical end of life symptoms for these structures. It's been undercut by the sea, so those foundations were not intended to be exposed like that. It's been eroded away, and so it's showing, yeah, signs of being undercut. I imagine the foundations are quite substantial, but if that got sufficiently undercut, it would topple over. If it was on the top of a cliff and the cliff got eroded, obviously it will tumble down the hill, down the cliff, and probably break. Anyway, this is a World War II pillbox, actually in quite good preservation. Let's go inside. Oh, disappointing number of plastic bottles, isn't it? Yeah, so this would have just been for troops to be stationed here, keeping an eye on the coast, looking for invaders. That's not an invader, that's Jenny. But yeah, remarkably good preservation actually, this one. Now normally they would have had like a little chimney or something, like a little hole in the ceiling, or so they could have a little stove in here, keep themselves warm, cook a tin of beans or whatever, fry up some bacon. But I can't see anything like that here, so maybe this one didn't have that. So that's the inside of a quite nicely preserved World War II pillbox. So here's the thing that's puzzling me. There's some wild garlic here, some sort of onion or garlic, and when I saw the smaller versions of this I thought it was crow garlic, because that's really common by the coast here, but this is 1 metre tall, 1.5 metres tall. I don't think this is crow garlic. It's got pink flowers, it has got aerial bulbils, or sky onions as I like to call them. It does look quite forageable, but I don't think this can be crow garlic. It's huge. I suppose it could be, because you always, you know, there's always a possibility of finding atypical specimens, but I tend to think this is something else. It smells different to crow garlic as well, and that's one of the things with the alliums, is every species of allium has got its own aromas and flavours. So yeah, I don't know what that is. It's got aerial bulbs, it's got pink flowers. That does sound like crow garlic, but it doesn't look like crow garlic. It's too big. Anybody know what this is? Do let me know in the comments. It's on the back of Chesil Beach here. We're on the little road, the little lane that runs behind Chesil Beach from the car park, from the Abbotsbury car park towards Burton Bradstock. And there's a lot of it here. So this is not just something that's recently escaped. It's all over the place. It's in the hedgerows all the way along here. But if it isn't crow garlic, it isn't a native allium for this land, because we don't have that many. We've got chives, we've got crow garlic, we've got ramsons, and possibly a couple of others, but I don't think, because like three-cornered leek is not native. Few flowered garlic, which is similar to three-cornered leek, is again not native. So I think we only have the 3 native alliums here, possibly another species of leek, but not this one. So yeah, don't know what those are. They could be they could just be leeks, I suppose. They might have been escaped from this agricultural land here, and they might be just regular leeks. There are arable fields up here, so it's possible at some point there could have been an onion crop in there and they came out, or they could be an ornamental allium that's escaped from a garden and spread itself all the way along here. What is this pink flower? Oh, it's pink. It's red campion. A particularly bright pink one there. Yeah, so there's one of these alliums that's a little bit more fresh. That does look like a leek flower to me. They do look like just regular leeks. So maybe that's what they are. So yeah, if you know what that is, let me know in the comments. It's got, like I say, it's got dark reddish brown, reddish black aerial bulbils and pink flowers that don't look like they open an awful lot. And these spherical umbels of these tight spherical umbels of flowers. This one hasn't got any aerial bulbils, so this could be a species that does that sometimes. I'm going with leeks. I think these might just be escaped leeks, but if you know better, do let me know in the comments. I'll get back here next spring and we'll hopefully get a better look at them. So today really was a case of a reconnaissance sort of trip to figure out some variables and things for the science expedition later this year. We have to wait until the ground nesting bird season is over, so after the end of August, before we can actually do the trip along the full length of Chesil. The other thing I've learned today is that I'm going to need something to close up that gap in the top of my boots, because I've got several pieces of gravel working their way down to my toes at the moment. Because we're not far from the car, I'm doing that thing where you just kind of walk carefully so you don't get it under the heel, but you can't do that on the day. So maybe I'll cut off some old socks. They'll kind of cover up my other socks and stop stones from falling in, gator sort of things. And just before we go, there's a red admiral. Beautiful. Go and open up for us. Not gonna. But busy feeding, too busy feeding to worry about me being here. I think that'll probably be the end of our video today. I'm just going to write down where we are and how long it took us to get here, and then we're going to head back. So I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.